Yes, so today we will discuss few more examples of a Docker compose as well as Dockerfile. Now we have already discussed about this example. Now let's talk about this one. Okay, it's again a example of Docker files and all. So this is an application. Okay, a simple application again, right? And this application listens on port 80 inside the container. Again, a very basic example of just a welcome.html. It as once we access the base URL of the application, so it will return us this welcome.html, a very simple example, right? And this particular also is the Node.js application, so it has got the package JSON and app.js I have just shown you. So this will, if we check this out, so this will, as soon as we access the base URL, so this will return us the welcome HTML, right? And this is its simple Docker file, a very simple. So we are using a Node Docker base image, Node Alpine. Okay, so basically the Alpine image is what? So Alpine image is a very lightweight Docker image which contains only the required things which the execution of the node needs. I mean, if you check this out now, let's go to the Node Docker Hub, Node Docker image, I mean. So if you check this out, Docker page, and let's scroll down a bit, so we can check here like this. There are a lot of Alpine images, then slim kind of images, right? So the Alpine images are the lightweight Docker images which doesn't contain the unnecessary things. So if you use, let's say, any Linux based image, for example any Ubuntu base image, so that Ubuntu base image will have lot of different things like different package managers and lot of things which your node might not need for itself, right? So we should choose such an image which is a lightweight image which has only the things which our application needs. So that should be our, always should be a strategy. Okay, so here this Node Alpine image is the lightweight image, a Docker image which only contains the things node needs for its execution. So that is our base image. Here we are again specifying the working directory for our image. Then what we are doing is we are copying the package JSON. So this package JSON we are copying it inside the image. Then again we are doing npm install, which will install all the required packages inside the node modules. So again layer by layer image would be created. This is the first layer wherein we are specifying our working directory. Second layer, it will copy the package JSON inside the image. Third layer would be on top of these two, that is, it will run the npm install and the node modules would be created. So far we have got 3 layers. In the fourth layer, the fourth one would be these 3 plus one more, wherein we are copying the other files. Other file in the sense this app.js is now we are copying, and then we are exposing a port 80, right? Now let's create a Docker image. So let me go inside this, just a minute, let me go inside this folder and start a command prompt. Let me start my Docker as well. So I'm starting a Docker. Let it start, and then as soon as it starts we are going to build our Docker image. So for building a Docker image, the command is docker build. Then you can give the name of your choice to the Docker image which would be created with the help of -t. And then I'll say express app, something like that. Okay. And then I'll provide a Docker context. So my Docker context is the current directory dot. So I am already inside this directory. This directory I am already inside, and all the like this copy and all, they are referring to the directory, the current one. So my Docker context is dot, and let's check out. Yeah, Docker is up and running. So let's create an image. So it is now creating the image. See, it is now installing the packages and our Docker image is ready. Now Docker image ls. If we check this out, so we have got our express app Docker image created, this one. So let's start a container. So I'll say docker run. I'll say -- name express server, something like that. Okay, and then I will provide --rm also, so that whenever I'll stop the container, I want it to be removed immediately. I'll also provide the port forwarding. So my internal port is 80. You can check in the application code also. So it listens on port 80. And my external port. So we have to first provide our external port, which I want to provide as 8086:80. And that's it. So let's create a container. So docker run and then image. Sorry, I just missed the image name. Correct.
Pranadev, what is this --name express server?
It's the name of a container.
Which we are directly giving, or?
Yeah, we can give any name to the container, right? The way we used to give Jenkins,
okay.
Nexus, whatever.
Yes, okay, yeah.
Right, so the container is started. It is running, by the way. So let's check this out. Docker container ps. Yeah, it is running. Now I can open my browser. See. So this is the page we are getting. This app seems to run fine. So this is the page we are getting. This is the welcome HTML. Congratulations, this app seems to run fine. This is what we are getting when we access the application. So our application is running fine inside the container, right? This is one more example. I'll share this example also. Another is this one.
Basically, like whenever the development team develops one application, maybe in a phase-wise or in a iteration or a sprint-wise model, like whatever the code they have with respect to back-end, front-end, or the data, whatever it is. So as a DevOps engineer, my responsibility is to create the Docker file and then
exactly and compose file for the deployment.
Yeah, so I have to create this compose file, and then we have to start the container. And then create the image and then start.
No. First is no. First is you will create a Docker file.
Yeah.
Okay. Then you will create the image.
Okay.
Then you will create the compose file when you will specify in all the details, right? So that you will be able to start the containers, right? So you can start the container with docker run command as well, the way we did it here, but it's always the better way by using compose file, right, wherein we can specify all the details which we have already discussed about.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so initially we will create this Docker file, and then with the help of this Docker file, we will create the image.
Yeah.
But however, in the compose file, like where is the compose file here?
No, we have not yet created, but if we want, we can create the compose file also.
Yeah, okay, okay. Where we specify all the details there and then.
Related to the container, yes.
Yeah, okay, okay. Okay, but here we have created the file image and then we have started the container.
Container, right? Yes. We have not created a Docker compose. Let me show here this one. So this has got the compose also. See here, I will show you. Now this is the application, okay, a backend one. It has got app.js and it has got the code for that application. Okay, it has got the Dockerfile also, so it uses the node image. We can use node alpine image also to reduce the size. Then it has got all the instructions in order to create our own Docker image. So like we are setting up the working directory, then we are copying packages, and then we are installing the packages and all that. And here we have also got the Docker compose file. See here.
Yes. Okay, so basically like our responsibility as DevOps engineer will be to create this Docker file and then the Docker image, right? So if we need any information, so should we also need to have the knowledge about the application? To create this Docker file and image?
Yeah, not the entire knowledge of that application is what we need, but what knowledge or understanding we need is like, as I had mentioned, that what environment variables the application needs to read. Say for example, here this particular application, the backend one, needs to connect to the Mongo database. Now, how does it read the settings related to the Mongo database, like which environment variables developers are using? So for example, if you check this out in this source code, now if I just scroll down a bit, so I'll show you like how do they connect. See here. So how are they connecting to the database? They are using a Mongo username, environment variable, password, and this is how they are connecting the database, right? So what we need to understand is, we don't need to understand the entire business logic of the application, but at least how the two components are communicating with each other, which environment variables the developers are reading it inside the application. So this kind of an information we need so that we can create the Docker file. So if you check here, so we need to also know how to set up the application. Like for example, any Node.js application, when we set it up, right? So we need to basically install all the required packages, right? So how do we install the packages? What do we need for that? So we need a package JSON. So in our Docker image of our application, we need to copy the package JSON. Then we need to run this npm install to get all the packages installed, right? This kind of information we need from developers, not the entire application.
Okay.
Right. But yeah, definitely we need this information. Absolutely. Now see here, we have got a Docker file, okay, for this application, which has got all the instructions. Now the interesting point here is, it has also got the compose file, right? So in this compose file we have set up the services like Mongo DB service, so image Mongo, then these are the volumes which are setting. We are also setting the environment variables. Do you see here, these environment variables, they are coming from here actually. See here, Mongo env. These are those environment variables, right? And if you check this out, Docker Compose, right? Now here we are setting one more backend thing, right? Now I'll show you something. Let's see now. See here in this, now I will go and I would say Docker Compose up. This is what we run, right, when we want to run the containers. Now let's understand what it does. As soon as you say Docker Compose up, it will not only start the container, but it will also build the image, Docker image. See here. You see this backend service we are configuring and we are saying build. So what does it mean? That when we will give this instruction Docker Compose up, so before it will start the container, it will check this build, it will check this /backend, that is this backend. From here it will pick up the Dockerfile and it will create the image, okay, and then it will start the container. Okay, I'll show you now. See, Docker Compose up and I'll say -d. So as soon as I do it, see, it is first building the image. So first building of the image has started and then the container creation will start. So Docker Compose can also be used to start your Docker image creation. So it will first create the Docker image, then it will start the container, and this is how you can control the entire process of the image creation as well as the container creation. See, now it is building the Docker image and then it will start the container. See, it is building the Docker image now. Here, so these ports and all we have already discussed, like 80 is the port, these are the volumes, this is the environment file, and depends on. So this depends on is important to ensure that this Mongo container will start before the before actual our application container starts, right? So see, it is doing now run npm install. So this is actually creating an image using this Dockerfile now currently. So this is what is going on here. See, and then it has started the container. So it has created the image as well as the containers. Docker image ls, if you check out, so this is the Docker image which has got created, and our container is also running, right? So we can access our application now using the expose port, not this one, sorry, just a minute, let me just check out. This is what the error it has got. I have got it, like it is saying that ports are not available. So my 80 port is not available is what it is saying. So no problem, 80 port is not available because I have my IIS running on that port. So I need to change the compose file actually. So it is what it is saying is, here we are, this is the container port 80 which we are publishing to port 80 of my Docker host machine, that is my laptop. So on my laptop on port 80 I am already having IIS running, right? So I will say 8087, some different port I will provide, and then again I will start the container. So Docker Compose I will say down and then I will say up again. Now it will not create the image because image is already created. But if the image is not created, then Docker compose up will also create image first and then it will start the container. Now if I say localhost colon 8087, then I can access my application. So I can say /goals or something. See, goals. So there are no goals, so I don't have anything here. So there are some, API endpoints given, so which are there. So this is how we can access the application. But the point here is that let's try and understand the flow now. Once the developers develop the application, you need to get some information about how the different components of the application communicates with each other. Point 1, which environment variables the application needs, that you need to know as a DevOps person. Then you will start creating a Dockerfile after understanding how the application is built and prepared for the execution. So in case of Node.js application, we would be needing a package.json of the application. So that's what we would be copying inside the Docker image. Then we would be running npm install to install all the required package dependencies. So we are mentioning here npm run install. Then we are copying rest of the files from the current directory inside the Docker image. Now when you will say copy dot, meaning what? Whatever are the files in your current directory, all would be copied inside your image. Now you might ask, there could be the files which I do not want to copy inside the image. I mean few files which I don't need to be copied. Why to copy everything and increase the image size, isn't it? So we should always be copying only the required ones. So if you want to mention to the Docker that whenever it will encounter this copy instruction, what kind of files it should ignore. Like for example, here if you do not want any file with extension .env to be copied inside the image, or any file with the extension txt to be copied inside the image. So your application directory might have a lot of files which you might not require all of them for the execution of your application, right? So what you can do is you can prepare a file called docker ignore. So in this docker ignore, you can specify node modules folder, so that this node modules folder which is there, it should not get copied inside the image. Okay, then this Dockerfile, definitely Dockerfile is something which you again do not want to be copied inside the image, because Dockerfile is for the sake of creating a Docker image. It doesn't have anything to do with the execution of your application. So why it should be the part of your Docker image? If you have checked in this code into the git, so you will have the .git folder also there. So that definitely you do not want to be copied inside the image. So you can specify, you can create a .docker ignore file, and you can specify folders and files therein which you do not want to be copied inside the Docker image as a result of this copy instruction. So this is what the docker ignore is all about, right? So you will create a Docker file. If you have few files directories which you do not want to be copied inside the image, so you will create a docker ignore file and you will mention those things there. Then you will create a compose YAML wherein you will mention all the components of your application. So database MongoDB, for this you would be using image this, then volumes, then env file, then another service that is your backend, so wherein you are also defining build, so how the Docker Compose will build your Docker image, wherein it will get the Docker file, so that's what you will mention. So this build should mention the location of the Docker file. Okay, you will also you can also mention here image name. So I'll say backend app. So what will happen is, as soon as now, see here, now as soon as now Docker Compose down. So I'm just taking everything down so that I can create a new image and new containers. So it has removed all those. Let me remove all the unnecessary images. If I have Docker container prune, okay, now let's run Docker Compose up again. See, now it is creating an image, and now the image has got this name, backend app. Where this name came from? This name is this one, which I have just defined. So when you will say Docker Compose up, it will check if there is any build property. So this build property always should specify the location of the Docker file, which contains all the instructions to create the Docker image for the application for that particular service. So it will create a Docker image first with the name you have mentioned here in this image, and then it will start the container with the created Docker image. So Docker image creation as well as containers creation, everything would be taken care of here, right? So you can check now, Docker container, yes. So we have this application now, this one, which is running, right? And now I can specify the container name also if I want to. So I can specify the name of my container. That's not a big deal, right? Container name. So I'll say backend app. I can provide the name to this MongoDB container also, right? I can say container name Mongo database, something like that, right? And let's Docker Compose down. It will take everything down. It will, close the containers. It will remove those containers. I'll stop this one, which we had created previously. Express server it is, right? So I'm stopping this container, and yeah, so the container is stopped, so I don't have any containers running, everything is clean. Now let's start a new container, Docker Compose up -d. So So it will create the images and it will create the containers also. So you can check. So these container names it has taken from here, container name. So it will create the image as well as the containers, right? So compose is very important file. Now let's check out this one more example. So I got a lot of examples actually. See, this also has got a compose file, same application actually it is, a Docker file. Yeah, and so there is nothing like we are copying anything inside. It's a basic Docker file which is not doing much. Let's check out this one. This has got also front end and all that stuff. So open folder. Yeah, so if you check here, we have got backend as well as front end, right? So backend has got its backend has got its Docker file. So it has got its Docker ignore, then it has got its application files, its Docker file. So that Docker file has got the instruction to create the backend image. Similarly, a front end. So front end also has got its Docker ignore. It has got its Docker file. So its Docker file is also very simple. Like we are using a base image of node, working directory we are setting, we are copying package.json, we are running npm install, copying other things, and we are exposing 3000 port here. And npm start is the starting command. Right, and it has got a Docker compose also. Yes, so you can check here. So it has got a build. So it will create a it will create a image. So I'll just say image backend app, then container name I'll specify here. This is a front end, so this is the location of the Docker file of the front end application, and I'll specify the image name. Right, so this is the port, and yeah, pretty much. I mean, and this front end depends upon backend, because unless you have your backend running, you cannot run your front end, because your front end will try to connect to the backend, and if that is not up and ready, then front end will start giving us the errors, right? Now what we can do is we can go inside this CMD and let's take down the containers which we had started here by doing docker compose down. So we are stopping the containers and taking everything down, and then we will create the new containers with the help of this example. So here I'll say docker compose up. So as soon as I do this, what it will do, from this compose, it will first read the build property. It will find the location of the Docker file, which is this. It will start running the commands from it, and it will create the image. That image will get this name which I have mentioned here. Then it will create a container. Then for front end also the same. It will check this out. It will check this front end thing. It will create the image. It will start the container. Okay, let's do this. See, first it is creating a, now why it is creating the front end first? Because see, the back end, I think it has already created. Let it do, I'll show you. So it is creating the front end image. But it will first start the container Docker backend. It has not yet started any container, so it is first creating the images. So it is doing npm run install. So it is exporting the name of the image. So now this image will get the name which we had mentioned. This name, front end app. Okay, so it has given me this error 80, obviously because 80 port is not available on my system, so I'll say 8087. Let's run Docker Compose down and let's run it again. Now it will not create the image again because the image already is created. It will simply start the containers. First it will start the backend container followed by front end. So my both the containers, backend container, front end containers are running and I can access them. Localhost colon 8087 yeah, 8087, correct. So this is the back end and front end. Let's access the front end 3000. Yeah, this is the application. Right, so this is one more example. And yeah, so we have covered up most of the examples.